My name is Zach with Behind the Oaks Farm. My wife and I, Samantha, and my kids and my father-in-law, we all do our best to regenerative ranch, so our goal is the focus on trying the soil and work from the ground up instead of just focusing on the animals. The animals being the end product, what we sell. On the cattle side, we use rotational grazing, so we try and keep our animals moving. And we apply that principle to all of our animals. We try and keep all of our animals moving all the time. We have certain situations, various droughts or something like that, where we may lock animals down, such as the cows, and use an area to kind of sacrifice it and just hay them heavy. But for the most part, everything's moving all the time. We try and do 1 to 3 day rotations on cattle. With chickens, it's generally a week in a spot, then they move. Turkeys, same way. Well, actually, turkeys we do 2 times a week when we move them when they're on pasture, and then pigs we do weekly. The regenerative practice, I actually came from the IT world, so coming into farming and ranching is not anything I had experience with. My father-in-law was retiring from his construction business, at which point he asked if maybe we wanted to take over doing things here, take more of a responsibility there, and I stepped away from the IT world and stepped into this. But one of the things my wife and I discussed is well, if we're gonna do this, let's do it our way, not the way that that it's just been done, which there wasn't really any systems to it at that point. It was just, cattle and some laying hens, and that was it. And the cattle, had free reign, and the laying hens were actually right over here, pretty much orchard and the hen house, and that was it. And so where now they get rotated around the whole property. So we're like, well, we need to figure out somebody who's been doing this, at which point we reached out to Travis Krause, who became a good friend and a mentor for us and kind of gave us information and gave us a head start. He also told me, hey, read this book, and it was the Holistic Management Context by Alan Savory. And that was a really good book, but it was it's more like a manual, so it was a hard read, and I wasn't a huge reader then, so I was I'm an Audible learner, and so started reading that, and then one thing led to another. So understanding that everything is connected and there's a system and the whole, basically leader-follower systems with animals and how they, coexist with each other, and this one helps that one, and so on and so forth. I was like, let's get all the animals now, And my wife was of course, no way. So she kept me, so we made an agreement. You get to add 1 species a year. So we've been adding, we started with cows and laying hens. And then that first year we jumped right into broilers. And then for broilers, we added the turkeys. Sheep is something I really want to do. But before we have added that, right after the ducks, we started working with pigs. Really love the pigs. They've been great. They're just a great source to take a piece of land that, maybe isn't doing all it needs to do, and they go through and they mop it up, and they get that low tilling going, and they start turning over that seed bed a little bit, and you get a lot more diversity growing. So we ran them through a whole 13-acre pasture. We ran about 80 of them through. We started with a batch of 30, and then our other batch was about 50. And we ran them through just half-acre lots. We used Joel Salatin as a guide on that. So we used his books to figure out how we're gonna set it up and to kind of cut out the labor. So we went and built out the whole paddock and just rotated them through there. And that went really well. And watching it recover and how much it recovered was really, really cool. Did I know that I had a plan of that and this and that? No. But I did make a plan, and the reason we did that was under Travis Krause's guidance. He's like, look, here, take this. So we took the HMI plan. Basically, they have one, it's a PDF you can get, and it has all the different enterprises, and you can list out your different enterprises, and you can make a plan to plan for profit. Be like, okay, I need to do this. This is my labor expenses. These are all my expenses. Okay, this is how much I need to sell everything for, essentially, and this is how you start making that plan. And if you don't plan for profit, then it's not what's left over. You got to plan for it. I mean, in order for you to keep doing it, it has to be. Otherwise, you're gonna, 1, burn out, and 2, it's just you're gonna lose. You're gonna have to go do something else. Your attention's gonna be split, and then therefore you can't actually do all that you want to do. And so when we sat down, we went through it, and I made year 1 and year 2 plan, and then updated it as we went. Okay, these are the marks that we set for each month. Did we make those? Okay, no, here we keep going. This is where it needs to change here. So just different, and it was a slow climb. It's not fast. I mean, we're getting into selling a consumer good right away with nobody knows anything about us. We're just Joe Blow, and I mean, not many people know about us now, but we have a pretty good customer base that are very loyal to us, and we're super thankful and grateful for them. But on the whole, no one knew who we were, so I just started a little markets, and a couple $100 a day. It's just not very much, and so we start scaling up, and now we're at 2 of the bigger markets in the area, and those do really well for us. Chickens in themselves are just dirty. That's just them. That's their nature. So we talk about pasture-raised broilers raising for meat birds. They're dirty. They produce a lot of poop, which is why we have them, because they're really good for the soil. They get that nitrogen down, and it's just great. And so, but you have to go through a process of brooding them, and the brooding is it can be challenging, and sometimes it can be smelly, and sometimes you can have catastrophes like water leaking, and then all of a sudden you have a bunch of dead birds. And so dead animals is a big part of it that you don't realize you're getting into, especially when you talk about scaling up. There's a lot more points of failure at that point, right? So you may have one little house that you're running or whatever. Okay, well, it's just one point of failure. Really easy not to miss that, but you start scaling up and you get into, we run 5 brooders, and we've got almost 2,000 birds on pasture right now. So that's a lot that can go wrong. So and birds can be sensitive. Wet generally isn't a problem, cold isn't a problem, but wet and cold becomes a big problem for all animals. But birds the smaller the animal, the more sensitive they are. Death is something to be expected. It's, we just try and learn from it and be like, okay, well, was this our fault? Is this something that we could have prevented? Okay, or was this just one of those things that happened and there was nothing we can do about it? And, there's been times where it was our fault, and there's been times where it wasn't. It just wasn't within our control. Weather, Mother Nature does her thing. So, but God's been good to us. We're very blessed, and it could be a lot worse. So the next step for Behind the Oaks Farms is really, we're just trying to concentrate and see where we can close loops. Compost is something that we're working on, so we've got some testing I need to do to make sure it's meeting the standards that I want it to meet. And then we would be able to then spread that on our pastures, as well as sell that to other people wanting to spread it on their land or into their gardens or whatever they want to do with it. So compost is the next big venture we're working on. The other thing we'd like to add in is sheep. We'd really love to get them in there with the cattle to help break up that worm cycle, because they work really well together. Yeah, so for us personally, our primary focus is first, we always look to God, our creator. So he is the foundation of what we do. And we know that he's given us this land and this stuff to steward. And so we want to do as good a job as we can doing it. And it doesn't mean we're not going to come up short. Sure, we're going to come up short. We're going to miss things. Life happens, whatever. We're people, we're human. But we do our best ability to make sure we're stewarding it to standards that, if God is right there walking with us, we treat them that way. So that's a big point for us. And then the next thing, we want to be delivering a product that is not just good for our customers, but it came and restored some land and became healthier through that. So we want healthy land, which is also healing the people that we serve. So we have lots of customers that, they've had health problems, and they've been able to, source our food and been able to be, helped on their journey to healing. And so that's really encouraging, and that is something that really keeps us going and doing things the way we do it, and trying to keep very high integrity when we do those things. Tips for new farmers: definitely get out to the closest local farm that you can, somebody that's doing something, and pick their brain, ask them questions, figure out what they're doing. If you see something that you want to do, go see them do it, go work with them doing it. And learn what you can, mentor underneath them. And then before you dive into it, make a plan, because that's the number one thing that, with all businesses, is there isn't a good solid plan, and we don't plan and account for things. And if you don't account for them, then you'll never know, it's just gone. But if you can be as prepared as possible, think through the scenarios and get prepared, that's the goal. So plan and get with another farmer. 2 big tips.